So hi there, welcome to duelbash update 0.0.1. I'll go over some of the main changes we've done, I'll show you a bit of the progress and how we implement things and stuff like that, so it should be a fun little video for you guys. Anyways, let's go over some main changes. So the game now runs correctly at lower FPS values. So before, if you had a slow computer, if you run at less than 60 FPS, everything would run slower, including player animation, movement, entities on the screen would run slower, the timers would run slower, the ability cooldowns, everything.
So all of that should be fixed now, essentially.
We've implemented movement prediction for players and seekers. So now if you have a server that's running at 20 FPS, you can still have a smooth playing experience client side because of this change. Downloading maps is a lot faster now. Probably something like 100 times faster. I'll show you a demonstration a bit later. There was a couple of bug fixes. This is just some of them. There's a lot of small ones I didn't mention here. But the main one and the thing I'll show you next is this one. The server would sometimes miss player input commands. So before, sometimes if you press jump, your player wouldn't jump, so the server would kind of miss this command, essentially.
So what was causing this issue was the way I implemented input handling in the game. Essentially, the way it worked before is you were sending, as a client, you were sending the states of all inputs every single frame. And what happens is, depending on your network and how the server is performing, the messages might not arrive at the correct order, or the server might skip over some of those messages. So instead of that, we're now sending a separate packet for when states of inputs are changed. And my developing me here is gonna give you a demonstration real quick.
What I want to show you right now is that I'll actually move my mic closer to my keyboard so I can really show you this. So whenever I press space, my character jumps. Okay, remember this, because this is going to be important. Okay? Because now I'm going to exit and I'm going to disable what we just done. All of that out. Okay, now we're going to compile the game, connect to the server. So now, okay, that was incredibly lucky. It actually jumped like most of the times there, but usually it fails like in more than 50% of the cases. See, like now it was like 3 jumps in a row, it didn't trigger. So that's how we fixed that. So another small bug fix on my to-do list is, and I'm writing the changelog as I'm implementing these things. Thornshield's visual state wouldn't update properly client side. So the left side is going to be the server side and the right side is going to be client. And I'll show you what this does. So I'm holding my thornshield and you can see on the left side of the screen is beefed up because we've taken a bunch of damage or absorbed damage. And this doesn't happen client side. So this is going to be a really quick fix. Let's just do that. So, let's see this now. Does it update client side? And do we get a crash? No, it seems to work now. Bug fixed.
Okay, now let's move on to implementing movement prediction. And boy, this was a roller coaster, let me tell you that.
Have to connect. Okay. Oh. It's definitely struggling. Yeah, and then when you jump, it completely breaks. Okay, I'll show you. This is the server, and then this is me. It's not even close to like where I'm supposed to be at.
And so, after a little more trying, I managed to, well, really not get much done at all.
It's definitely getting stuck on things. How am I all the way down fucking there?
And so, during this last stretch of programming, I kind of actually managed to do it, sort of.
Okay. Ah, okay, we're getting somewhere now. So you can see that sometimes client and the server disagree what my character is doing. By the way, without movement prediction, this is what you get. Okay, I'm purposely making the server lag like a lot. And with movement prediction, honestly, that's quite a bit more decent. So I'll just remove this purposeful lagging I've implemented. And let's test this in a real sort of environment. So I'm running 60 frames here, and my server is running 20 frames. And so for every 3 frames here, the server is running only 1 frame. So I need to predict where my character is going to be for those remaining 3 frames. You can see it's doing a very bad job.
So the desync you see on the screen, it's happening because I'm never taking into consideration the player inputs and only their X and Y velocity, which is sent over by the server. And since the game is running so slowly, you get those messages every so often, but not often enough. And so after taking inputs into consideration, this is what we end up with.
Okay, so I'm at a point where I'm quite happy with what I've got over here. So on this side, this is me connected to the server. I'll show you where the server is. The server is running at 20 FPS. The game looks like, well, you can see it's very choppy. But client side, look, it's relatively smooth. I still have to test this with actual players in an actual game. So another thing I wanted to cover with movement prediction is the seeker as well. So this is a client side now. All right, look at how choppy that movement is of the seeker. I kind of want to implement some sort of movement prediction for that as well. All right.
And so we get another roller coaster, but not as drastic as the last one.
Let's see. It's a bit... I almost think that it's moving too much. Okay, so the solution was actually pretty simple. So I just I run the movement code of the seeker if the game is server or if we're using movement prediction, and that seems to work wonders. I'll show you just in a second here. Now we're client side. You can see that my aim is lagging, but the seeker is smooth because we're using movement prediction. Awesome. Problem solved. Okay, so that concludes movement prediction. Now I want to show you how I did this part. So what you see on the screen is a time lapse of me completely redoing the whole system for downloading maps. Precisely what I'm doing here is I'm completely redoing the image download part, which was the slowest bit of the algorithm. And so I'll show you what that does now. Okay, so I've actually done a little more work, and I've made it so that the downloads are extremely fast, like exponentially faster than they last were. I'll show you that a little bit. You probably didn't even notice that there was a map downloading there. Yes, there was a map downloading, and I'll actually change it to the biggest map I have, which is 20 megs, just to show you here how fast it does it. There you go. And it's just this final last image it's having trouble with, but it's dealing with that one relatively quickly as well.
So I'll show you a before and after so you can get a feeling of how much faster this really is.
Oh yeah, no, it's still going, but it's you. I mean, that's the speed difference. Like I thought the game froze for a second, like the server crashed or something, but no, we're still downloading. It's at 3%. It's gonna get to 4 very soon. So I'm hoping you can see what the speed difference is. There we go, 4%. I'm hoping you can see what the speed difference is
between the two versions now. And hopefully somebody's gonna say good job in the comments, right? And so that leaves us with the second part of the changelog here, which is balancing. And I did a whole bunch of stuff here. Oh, sorry. I did a whole bunch of stuff here. And I had to rework quite a few things and implement a whole new system, which I'll talk about later. But it was actually a lot more work than you think. Because it, you know, I know it says balancing, but it was a lot of work. Trust me on that.
So the very first thing we changed is the fist. It's a bit more expensive to build, but you get a higher strength by default, as well as you can now have all kinds of effects on it. Before you used to only have, I think, slow snare and silence. And now you can have live steal, now you can have crit and all that good stuff. So yeah, fist is good.
We got a thornshield, which is kind of completely reworked. The projectile damage now following a square root curve. So what that means is
before you could easily do like 1,000 damage with the projectile. Now it's gonna be a bit harder because it's gonna follow a square root curve. So it's gonna sort of level off at a certain level. So you won't be dealing too much damage with the thornshield, but it's still gonna block the same amount.
And now thornshield blocks damage differently based on where the damage is coming from. So I have this whole section down here which tells you where the damage is coming from and how we actually do this. So in case of, for example, a ranged attack or a rocket, you actually have to face thornshield into the projectile to block its damage, otherwise it doesn't work. And you can just read through this if you're not sure what does what. Cleanse was pretty useless in my opinion, so I increased the default range to 80 pixels and I reduced the cooldown debuff that it gives you when you build it. Haste is completely reworked. Before, it used to reduce your cooldowns by a flat amount, like 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Now it's a percentage, so it works a lot better with abilities with longer cooldowns. And the cost was slightly decreased as well. Heal now overheals you, so it gives you a shield. And so I actually had to, I didn't have a system for shields in my game, so I had to implement that from scratch. I had to redo a bunch of stuff, like I had to obviously add the shield system and then change how the health bar is displayed for you to be able to support shields and stuff like that. I have a whole video on that. It's actually like 2.5 hours of me just silently programming, implementing shields. Go watch that if you're interested. Yeah, but that's kind of it. And then teleport is completely reworked as well. We have new range parameters. So before, the damage range of teleport was scaling with your attack range, which was a bit stupid. So now you get a separate range parameter. But there's a couple of changes. Teleport is no longer instant. Well, it kind of is, but it doesn't do any damage if you trigger it instantly. Instead, you need to charge it, and then based on how long you charge it for, it increases range and damage. After you hold it for 2 seconds, it actually disables it or resets the teleport bubble, so you can place it again if it's like way off the map or something like that. Deal with the devil is reworked a bit. I actually added, this is a funny thing, it's completely unnecessary, but it actually gives you a 20% size debuff, so your character is actually smaller in game when you build this, but it should be a lot more useful now, I think, and balanced. So that pretty much wraps up the changes for version 0.0.1. You can try the game, I have links down below. Join my Discord server and yeah, let's have some fun. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.